The reworked Blackbeard was released in Siege just a few weeks ago, and chances are that you've seen a lot of mixed reviews about him. Is he overpowered? Is he trash? Is he balanced? That's what I'm going to discuss here in this video. Let's get started. Of course, along with anything Siege related, it can all come down to personal preference or opinions, so we'll try to keep this as objective as we can for the most part. The first thing that stands out to me is that his baseline shield mechanic is decently balanced considering Ubisoft introduced a nerf to shields along with this new season. So if we had this version of Blackbeard last season, it would be a whole different story, but I think just the shield at its core is decently balanced. However, I do think the glass that protects his head when extended and then retracts when he's ready to shoot is so perfectly clear, if that makes sense, that it's nearly impossible to tell when Blackbeard's shield is up or down, especially from far away or across a hallway or something like that. And I think they need to add some kind of a tint or literally anything to make that more balanced, because that's really one of the biggest issues that I have encountered thus far with playing against Blackbeard so far. Now, when looking at playing as Blackbeard, I've noticed a few times where my own hitbox has been a little bit wonky, and I'm sure this could just be the fact that we're early on in the season still and there's glitches, and that's understandable, but I've 100% gotten headshotted through my shield at least a handful of times, which is a bit weird, but Ubisoft is usually pretty quick to fix things like that, and in fact they might have already fixed it by now, so I'm not too worried about it. And then I do think the grenade mechanic, where if in case you don't know, you can throw it like the grenades from behind your shield without exposing yourself, I think it's a great strategy and I wouldn't consider it overpowered. I have seen a lot of people online say that they need to change that, but then we're starting to go down that slippery slope again of nerfing Blackbeard, and I mean, we all know what happened the last time there was a Blackbeard nerf. Nobody played him for 6 years, but so yeah, although this is definitely powerful, it's not over the top, and I just like the uniqueness of it. And then the amount of time that it takes to retract your shield and aim down sight is definitely long enough to make Blackbeard slightly less than ideal when playing against players that have some semblance of aiming mechanics, I guess. And you know, I'm mostly in diamond lobbies where I can get headshots super quickly by opponents, but I can see how powerful this would be regardless of the ADS delay in lower rank lobbies. So it could just be a situational thing depending on where you are. It could be really good in some lobbies, really bad in other lobbies. It really just depends on how good the players are you're playing against, you know, how they react to Blackbeard. I know some people just kind of flip out and they don't know how to play it. Same way that when Clash came out, no one knew how to play against her because they would just freak out and, you know, lose any common sense. But now moving on, at his core, Blackbeard's loadout just really isn't all that great. Neither one of his primaries necessarily excite me. Some people would say the opposite. I just can't get behind that. But I do think that this is a really good thing that his loadout isn't all that good, that he has some mediocre guns, because could you imagine if he had like an AK-12 or a G36C or something like that? That's where you start to cross the line as overpowered. So I think his weaker loadout is actually a really good thing and keeps him relatively balanced considering his shield play makes up for a lot of the slack. It was definitely really risky, to say the least, for Ubisoft to release a shield operator coming off of the shield nerf, because if the nerf was stronger than expected, Blackbeard could have been obsolete yet again, but if the nerf wasn't strong enough and the shield meta persisted, then Blackbeard would have been a force to be reckoned with. And while I do think the shield nerf was a bit on the harsher side of things, I think that Blackbeard is in a decent enough spot right now to call him balanced. His shield is good, but it's not overpowered just because of the nerf, and his ability to have a shield and a primary is definitely overpowered at its core, but it balances out yet again with the fact it's a slow ADS time and a pretty subpar primary weapon no matter which one you choose. So I do think that he is a really fun operator, to say the least, and he kept his core integrity of who he was before the rework, and I think that's the most important part. But in a way, they kind of created an entirely new identity for him, and I gotta give props to the developers. I think they did a really good job. In fact, I think they've done a really good job, you know, this whole entire year. Deimos and Skopos are two of the most fun operators to play in the game right now, and I think that Blackbeard sits right up there with them, you know, regardless of how good those operators are, you know, they are just fun to play, and I think that's really important, just as important as them being good. Now, from what I've seen, mostly on social media, It looks like the community is split on their verdict on Blackbeard. I've seen both extremes on both ends of the spectrum. Some people saying he's overpowered and some saying he's not good at all. I don't think either of those claims are right. It seems like the overall consensus is definitely split. I just think he is really easy to use if you master him, and I played a lot of him for the background gameplay of this video, and I'm nowhere near to, figuring him out yet, so I think there can be a very high skill ceiling for players who are much better than me. But yeah, he's very promising, and to be fair, it would have been really difficult or even impossible for Ubisoft to make Blackbeard any worse than he was before. So if this operator came into the game as a standalone character, it wasn't a rework, maybe we would be calling him underpowered, and maybe he is just so much better than he used to be, even though it's not saying much. And that could be what is skewing my perception of him. But yeah, that was pretty much a long-winded way of me saying that right now I think Blackbeard is a balanced operator, and I doubt we'll see any tweaks to him anytime soon, as I think that Ubisoft did a pretty good job with his new ability. Like I said, I definitely think he is a fun operator at the very least, regardless of if you think he's good or not. I had a lot of fun playing him in quick match. In ranked, it is definitely more hard, like how I said. It seems like people aren't really, they're not really thrown off by him as much as I thought they would. Like how I said earlier with how Clash first came out, people just tend to not know how to play against shields, which is why I think Blackbeard is probably a lot better as you go down the ranks rather than up. But I guess that kind of just depends on the lobbies that you're in, and I do think that everything kind of balances out nicely. I'm hoping Ubisoft doesn't react too, harshly to both polarized sides of the community. Like I said, both sides have said that it's either way too overpowered or really bad, just as bad as he was before. And I hope they don't make any changes or try to side with one of those sides or the other, just because I really do think that it kind of all balances out. There's always going to be operators that some people think are really good, some people think are really bad. Again, like how I said at the beginning of the video, it can all really just come down to opinion, and I think that maybe some play styles Blackbeard could fit more than others. But if I had to put him in the category of overpowered or trash, like I said, I think if you take this all in a vacuum, I think he's very balanced. But if I had to take one or the other, I think that a really good Blackbeard, a really good player playing Blackbeard, is in fact overpowered. So do you guys agree or disagree? Let me know down in the comments. I always love discussing these topics with you guys. And besides for that, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.